set this synopsis up to say now, starting from the last time I uploaded an update. So I can honestly say that the longer and longer I stay here, the more and more I think that people just are not interested in helping me, or they're not really taking their role in my development seriously. So one thing that I thought was weird that happened recently was that Blum got emailed by some dude named Gagne from UNC asking about the paper that I co-wrote earlier this year. So he asked her if we had P31 spectra to confirm that the catalyst was what we thought it was, and we didn't. So what did Blum do? She called a meeting to look at the proton and NMR spectra to see if we could discern the different catalysts. I'm drawing blanks. This is late at night. To see if we could, discern different catalyst environments, if you will, from the proton NMR spectra. But the thing is, these catalysts are, around only 5 mole%. So the peaks that correspond to them are really small. So you don't really know whether or not you're looking at catalysts or if you're looking at crud from the reaction. So it's like there is no conclusive conclusion that can come from looking at the arid matter region. So why are we doing this? But we ended up spending, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes to an hour discussing it, and for whatever reason, she thought we should email Gagne spectra so he could look at it for himself. Even though, again, the peaks are really small and you can't really tell whether or not they're actually what you think they are. But for P31, you can do that easily because the spectra for, the gold chloride, the isolated gold triflate, and the, gold silver solution was, all published online. So we can just cross-check that with information that's already out there. Another thing is, she doesn't, by she I mean Blum, she doesn't really, how do you say, she's it's not that she's lying, but she doesn't give the correct information. I'm not entirely sure if she doesn't know that the information that she's giving me isn't necessarily correct, but I'm just gonna, tell you what I experienced and then let you decide. So for the past couple weeks, or should I say week and a half, I've been running test reactions to form benzyl TMS, right? So I run the reaction, work it up, and without purification, just look at the NMR, and based on what I see in the proton NMR, I'd be able to tell whether or not the products produce, or if we have just straight up dimers, since this reaction involves the formation of a Grignard reaction, the formation of a Grignard reagent. Sorry. So I can, just compare my crude NMR spectra to the spectra that I find online of the product and the dimer. And, I told Blum this. I told her that I didn't isolate anything. And, she ended up asking me the boiling point of benzyl TMS. And according to the Sigma's website, it's 184 degrees centigrade. And she said I would have to be careful because that may evaporate under high vacuum. But the thing is, our vacuums don't pull off DMF at room temperature. and the boiling point of DMF is like 150 something. So I'm not really worried about, um, losing product, you know, just as long as there's, enough to be seen by NMR. I can have a good idea when I, use this same method to produce the compound that I actually want, which is, a derivative of what I've been doing in the test reactions, but, close enough, right? And another weird thing is that, I print out a large amount of the papers I read because they're easier to keep track of when they're printed out. You just keep them on your desk or whatever. And I'm pretty sure she reads them when I'm not around. Because some weeks ago, I was having a conversation with her, and I talked about testing, silofluorides in my methodology step, as I call it. And she told me that those adhere to glass, and I was like, really? And, she seemed to mouth the words attack glass, which is strange because, like, that was the exact wording of another paper that I wrote. But how would she know that I know that? Well, should I say, how would she know that I should know that these silofluorides should adhere to glass or attack the glass if she doesn't look through my pile and actually, repeats the exact wording from some of the papers that I've read? I mean, and it just seems kind of odd. And the reason why that is really odd is because we talk about the chemistry that I do. Like, let's take it back to the Grignard reaction to form benzyl TMS. So, I ended up adding potassium fluoride. And I did this to make the 5-coordinate silicon complex. So it'll be more reactive towards the Grignard, right? So the reaction will happen faster. I'm thinking that if I have a more active electrophile, the dimerization of the Grignard reactions would be, slower relative to the desired reaction because of, enhanced electrophilicity of the electrophile. And she's looking through my notebook. But instead of explicitly asking me why I'm using potassium fluoride, she just says, "Oh, potassium fluoride, huh?" It just irks me that when she has a question, she doesn't actually ask the question. She hints around it instead of just, asking. And sometimes I'm pretty sure I completely miss her questions. Because again, she just has to explicitly say what she wants to know, and then I can just tell her. It just annoys me a little bit, Anyway, yeah, the longer and longer I spend in her group, I just don't think that she really is interested in helping me develop, It's like she really provides really no direction. And when I do ask her a question, a question about, chemistry, she usually says some things that are a little bit off, Again, I don't really know if she's doing this on purpose or not, but I kind of just have started to just stay away from her, And it's not just her; it's everyone in the Blum group. Well, not everyone, because I don't talk to everyone in the Blum group. You see, in the Blum group, you pretty much have two groups: the catalysis group and then the microscope group. I'm part of the catalysis group, so I pretty much just only talk to those people, and even then, I don't really talk all that much. But in each case, almost every person I talk to has done something or said something that I thought was a little bit off. So consider an example from earlier today when I was talking to Darius Fazy, and Alex Fass. I asked them whether or not they thought it was a good idea to follow a text reaction until the first half-life, meaning that half of the starting material is consumed the product, or until 6 hours is up. I figure that if you know how long one half-life is, you can just multiply that number by 8, and then like that'll give you a rough idea how long the reaction takes, And I don't think they really got my question, because they said things that were a little bit odd. So one thing that Alex mentioned is that, well, for whatever reason, he thought the ratio of catalyst to substrate was arbitrary and then stoichiometric. Why? I don't really know, considering that, usually when you're working with a catalyst, is active and is, in present in substoichiometric amounts relative to the substrate. So it just kind of strikes me as odd that he would assume that it was, either arbitrary or stoichiometric relative to the substrate, of course. And another thing that he mentioned is that after I told him that if I knew the half-life of, one half-life, I could follow it all the way to 8, or should I say, just multiply that number by 8 to determine how long the reaction will last. And he just said, yeah, well, 2 half-lives correspond to 75% conversion of product. So, and then his voice just drops off, which, is very odd, because he says it like this is some sort of profound statement, but, it really didn't have much relevance to my question. And one thing Fazy said was he pointed out that I was working with 2 variables, because I mentioned I can get information about the half-life and whether or not the catalyst is active. So that's 2 pieces of information. But the thing is, there's really only one variable that I'm working with, which would be conversion of starting material to product, which is a function of the catalyst. So it's really only one variable, but I'm getting 2 pieces of information out. And one thing that he also kind of hinted at was that I could enhance the activity of the gold catalyst that I was using by adding triphenylphosphine. Now, the catalyst that I was using was gold 1 chloride. And if I add in triphenylphosphine, I know that the maximum number of coordination sites would be, present on gold. So on gold 1, it takes a maximum of 2 ligands. If gold 1 has 2 ligands and it needs to act as a pi acid, it's the reaction's not going to go, because the substrate can't bind once gold has the maximum number of ligands already attached to it. So triphenylphosphine was a horrible idea. But the thing is, I'm not entirely sure if he was serious or not. You see, he says it with a straight face, but I'm not entirely sure if he actually believes what he's saying, or if he really is that slow. Like, I don't want to be so quick to believe that, he's just not a really critical thinker. But he does have a history of that, like, ever since my first year of graduate school. We came in during the first year, so I guess it would be our first year of graduate school. Every time I would ask him a question that would require a relatively high amount of thought, he kind of just shut down, said, I don't know. And it's like, oh, so okay. You're not even going to at least try to think about the problem? No? Don't care? All right, cool. And, he did this pretty consistently, up until the point where I just think that asking him a hard problem that he doesn't have first-hand experience with is kind of, well, worthless, because you know what you're going to get out. Nothing. And the reason why I asked him this question about the half-lives and the, time frame was because like has ran reactions on the NMR scale in J Young tubes. So I figure like if he understood the logic behind waiting for the first half life or until the first 6 hours, then he could probably use that to speed up the rate of optimization. You know, but again, I'm not entirely sure if he was really even giving it any thought. And there was this other postdoc, Chow Thing. So I asked him a question about this organozinc reaction, where you form benzyl zinc bromide and then end up adding TMS chloride as an electrophile to form the benzyl TMS. One of the things he mentioned was that TMS chloride would activate the zinc. But the thing is, given these people in the chemical sciences history for lying about what seems to be really no reason other than to make me look like a fool, I honestly didn't believe it, especially because I couldn't find it in the literature myself. The only thing that I found were alkyl halides like 1,2-dibenzyl, not 1,2-dibenzyl, 1,2-dibromoethane, methyl iodide, stuff like that. So yeah, it's like, again, the longer I stay here, the longer I don't really think people are really here to help me develop, especially when they say things that I definitely cannot find in the literature or that I know for a fact is wrong. So another example is Kim 2. So I was looking at, information on boron NMR, and I noticed that the BF3 peak, in boron NMR was a singlet. Now, boron is bound to 3 fluorines, which is a spin of 1/2. So you should probably see a quartet, right? At least that's what I was thinking. But it's actually a singlet according to the information that I found online. And then I asked Kim about it, and she, instead of just straight up answering my question, started talking to me about trifluoroborate salts, which is close, but it's not really what I asked about. I mean, she ended up saying I don't know eventually, but it just seemed a little odd that she just wouldn't just answer my question. Some more stuff that I thought was weird was that remember, these chemists have had a history of just lying to me for what seems to be no apparent reason. So, based on that thought alone, it brings back a flashback to when Alex Fast was presenting his advancements to candidacy presentation thing. And on one of the slides, he had a rate equation, but the catalyst that he used in the reaction wasn't taken into account for the rate equation. So I asked him about it, and what he said was the catalyst wasn't taken into account in the rate equation because it isn't consumed during the reaction. And that really had nothing to do with the rate equation. You see, if something's not consumed during the course of the reaction, it's not present in the thermodynamic equation, but it could be still present in the rate equation if it affects the rate, which is what a catalyst does. But if you have something in solution and it has no effect on the rate, but you call it a catalyst, it isn't a catalyst. It's just extra credit that you have in solution that you have to get away from your product. And after he gave me this answer, I looked at Blum and she just had a complete stone face. So I'm like, oh, he must be screwing me. Fuck that guy. So I kind of just dropped the question because, I would think that Blum would have jumped all over it as soon as he said that, but she didn't. So I just assumed he was screwing with me. And another thing is, when Quinn Easter was doing his practice presentation, I was trying to be what I would like to call a supportive group mate by asking him a lot of questions. And the reason why I'm asking him a lot of questions is because there were a lot of flaws that I saw in his in his science for his proposal. So my logic was, if I ask him a lot of questions and point out things that could potentially go wrong, when he presents this presentation in front of professors, all of those problems would have been solved, and he would be, more likely to pass. At least that was my logic. That was just my way of being a good group mate. But he didn't really seem receptive to it. He was visibly annoyed that I was asking so many questions, and I kind of just found him to be, unappreciative, because, I actually was trying to help him prepare for, being grilled by 3 professors who may show no mercy, but, I've been here long enough to kind of just assume stuff like that is going to happen, Ooh, almost dropped the camera. Yeah. I honestly have come to believe that not only people in this department are a waste of my time, but just people in UCI or Norris County in general, So, if you're watching this video and you see me around campus, don't even bother talking. I've given up on all of you. I have. I have no interest in making friends, no interest in forming any type of relationships. I just don't care anymore. And this is because of, how I've been treated over the years. I just don't think people are really worth the effort. And, as I'm posting these videos, one thing that comes to mind is that these people might, try to either make up stuff or try to come up with a reasonable rationalization as to why I was treated the way I was. And, it's just like, as I get closer to posting more and more of these videos, I noticed that more and more weird stuff happens. Like, we started going through 20 liters of hexane in a week. Now, I know maybe a lot of you aren't chemists, but that's a lot to go through in a week. You don't run that many columns, especially me. When I'm running test reactions, I don't actually try to purify anything, so I don't really use hexanes. So it just struck me as odd that we would be, using so much hexane. But one thing that I did see that could explain it is that I saw Darius Fazey walking out of the building and towards the parking lot with 2 4-liters in his hand. Now, I couldn't tell whether or not the 4 liters were empty or not, but I just thought it was a little odd that he had those bottles and he was walking towards the parking lot. And I should also note that's in the opposite direction of where you're supposed to throw, 4-liter bottles. More weird things. Let's see, what's that other thing? Oh yeah, recently I borrowed gold chloride from the Dung group, and Diane Lay got it for me. She, just threw a couple milligrams into a 4 ml vial and just gave it to me to take home. And by home, I mean lab. But the weird thing is that she told me to go sign out, which is weird because I wasn't actually taking a bottle. So I just put the fact that I ended up getting a little bit of gold 1 chloride. But it, like, the thought in the back of my head when she told me to do that was that if the integrity of the gold 1 chloride somehow became not what it should be, they may actually blame me because I had the bottle signed out. So if that does become the case, I just wanted to let everybody know I didn't actually borrow the bottle. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't think so. I'm just ready to go. I can honestly say that I don't really care about being a chemist anymore. I think I'm pretty much through after I leave here. Yeah.